Marcus Norton adjusted his uniform collar as he sat in the third row of Cedar Ridge Academy's packed gymnasium. 10 hours on the road hadn't dulled his purpose. He was here for one thing: to see Kayla, his daughter, graduate. By his side, Athena, his loyal German shepherd, stayed alert, her ears twitching at sounds only she seemed to register. The ceremony music faded. The principal stood at the podium, ready to begin the name calls. Marcus placed a calming hand on Athena's back, feeling her tension. Something was off. She knew it. So did he. 2 men approached the bleachers, security guards by the look of their matching black polos and serious expressions. One was stocky and barrel-shaped, the other lanky with a twitchy jaw. Their badges read, Harland Security Services. Their eyes, however, said something else entirely. "Sir, we need you to move," the short one said gruffly, not bothering to lower his voice. Marcus blinked. "Is there a problem?" "Family section's full," the tall one replied. "You'll have to take a seat in the back." Marcus raised an eyebrow and reached into his pocket. "I have a ticket for this seat," he said, pulling out a neatly folded stub. "Third row, left side. I showed it at the entrance." The guards glanced at each other. "Not our call," the short one muttered. He gestured toward the aisle. Athena let out a low growl. Marcus instinctively pressed a steadying hand on her flank. "I came a long way for this," he said firmly. "I'm not moving." Around them, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Parents exchanged looks. Cameras discreetly lifted. The guards tensed. Somewhere near the stage, Kayla turned her head, trying to see what was happening. Marcus didn't flinch. Whatever this was, he wasn't going to let it ruin his daughter's moment. Not without answers. Not without a fight. As the last student walked off the stage and caps flew into the air, the audience roared with celebration. Cameras flashed. Families cheered. But Marcus Norton stood still, his mind racing, his purpose shifting. He led Kayla and Athena through the crowd toward the exit. Behind him, Creed and 2 of the SEALs followed close. The other 3 had already peeled off to their vehicles, scanning the perimeter. Outside, the school parking lot buzzed with graduates and families embracing. PTA volunteers handed out water bottles. Balloons floated overhead. But by the curb, a line of police cruisers and unmarked SUVs waited, engines humming, lights dimmed. A familiar voice called out, "Commander Norton." Marcus turned. It was Lieutenant Reynolds, stepping forward with a folder under his arm. "We logged the recorder," he said. "It's marked as evidence, but there's more." He opened the folder and revealed a note card. "District Council is on its way. You'll want to see this through." Marcus scanned the note. It listed a name and address. "Reginald Harper is hosting a fundraiser this afternoon," Reynolds explained. "Municipal Center. All board members will be there." Creed cracked his knuckles behind him. Convenient. Kayla, now holding her graduation bouquet, looked up at Marcus. "Are you going?" Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're going. All of us." He glanced at Athena, who responded with a low, quiet woof. "Ready." Creed grinned. "Guess we're crashing a party." They climbed into Marcus's truck, Kayla in the front, Creed and 2 SEALs in the back, Athena positioned between them like a 4-legged guardian. As the engine started, Marcus gripped the wheel with renewed focus. "This isn't about a seat anymore," he said. "It's about every family like ours who's ever been told to sit down, stay quiet, disappear." He looked at Kayla. "Not today." And as the truck pulled away from Cedar Ridge Academy, the sun rising higher above them, Marcus knew the real battle was just beginning. The municipal center shimmered with luxury. Marble floors, glass chandeliers, and champagne flutes balanced atop silver trays. Banners with the words Cedar Ridge Annual Education Gala hung from the walls. It looked like a celebration of learning. To Marcus Norton, it looked like a cover-up. He stepped through the revolving door with Kayla by his side, bouquet in hand. Creed followed behind, scanning exits. Athena stayed close, her gaze sharp and focused. Board President Reginald Harper stood at the head table, all charm and polished teeth, shaking hands with local officials. Beside him, Superintendent Evelyn Walsh flipped through speech notes, occasionally nodding at guests. They hadn't seen him yet. "Keep your eyes on them," Marcus told Creed. He stepped up to the podium microphone. "Board President Harper," Marcus said, calm and clear. "I'm Sergeant Marcus Norton. My daughter, Kayla, graduated this morning." Conversations died instantly. Forks stopped clinking. Heads turned. Harper froze mid-handshake. Walsh looked up sharply. "I was nearly removed from the ceremony today under orders that originated from this board," Marcus continued. "I have a recording I believe everyone here should hear." He held up the recorder for the crowd to see. Whispers. Tension crackled. Marcus pressed play. Parker's voice filled the gala. "He's not just a parent. He's a Marine in uniform. If he stays, cameras will pick it up. We need him gone before he becomes the story." Then Harper's voice. "No military optics. Remove him." Quietly. Gasps swept through the room. Walsh paled. Harper reached for a water glass but missed. Marcus took a step back. "You didn't want me to become the story. But today, we all are." From behind the crowd, Athena emerged, carrying a sealed envelope embossed with the school's crest. She dropped it at Marcus's feet. He opened it. Inside, budget records, vendor contracts, and a spreadsheet labeled Program A37 Disbursements. He held up the final sheet. Millions in community funds, missing. And the room erupted. The gala turned from glamorous to chaos in seconds. Council members rose from their seats. Cameras flashed. Several guests gasped audibly as Marcus raised the spreadsheet into the air. Columns of figures glinted under the chandelier light. Transfers, redirections, inflated vendor costs. "This document," Marcus said, voice steady, "details where the money was meant to go. Community outreach, student resources, scholarship programs." He paused. "And this," he tapped a second page, "shows where it really went. Contractors, private security firms, repeated payments to companies with no school services listed." Superintendent Walsh stepped forward, panic breaking her formal posture. "Those are private records, which became public the moment you used them to target students," Creed interrupted, stepping beside Marcus. A councilwoman stood. "Is this true?" Marcus laid the documents across a display table. "I didn't come here to shame anyone. I came to protect my daughter's future and every other student who was put at risk." Harper's voice cracked. "This is an ambush. You had no right?" Athena barked once, firm, precise, silencing the room. Lieutenant Reynolds appeared through the side entrance, officers at his back. "Actually," he said, raising a badge, "these documents are now classified as evidence. Anyone tampering with or removing them will be charged with obstruction." Gasps. 2 board members backed away from the table. The superintendent's lips trembled. "This gala is about the kids." Marcus turned to her. "Exactly. So let it be." He placed a hand on Kayla's shoulder. She stepped forward. "I want my scholarship reinstated," she said clearly, "and I want transparency for every student here." Applause broke out, some hesitant, some bold. Then Harper raised a shaky hand. "The board will adjourn for formal review. Effective immediately, Assistant Principal Parker is suspended, and the board commits to full transparency moving forward." Marcus nodded once. Small victory, but only step one. As guests slowly filed out, whispers surged. The story was out now, and Marcus knew what had begun as a seat dispute had cracked, something wide open. As the crowd dispersed, cameras still snapped, and reporters whispered into their recorders. The gala wasn't just disrupted, it had become a turning point. Creed stepped next to Marcus, voice low. "Solid blow, but we're not done." Marcus nodded. He slipped the financial records into a sealed envelope and tucked it into his jacket. Athena circled back to his side, head low, ears flicking toward every sound in the room. Kayla leaned in, whispering, "Do you think they'll actually fix anything?" Marcus looked toward the exit, where Harper was already surrounded by aides, whispering urgently, "Not unless we make them." Outside, the night air felt colder. Police officers escorted remaining guests to their cars. Some turned to glance back at Marcus, as if trying to remember exactly what they'd just witnessed. Was it courage, rebellion, or the unraveling of something rotten? Lieutenant Reynolds joined them near the sidewalk. "That was just round one," he said. "Board President Harper's already calling lawyers. But your documents? They've stirred the nest." Creed crossed his arms. "Then it's time to bring in the state." Reynolds handed Marcus a small notepad. "District Council arrives tomorrow. They want to speak to everyone involved. I suggest you get some rest." "I'll rest when Kayla's scholarship is safe," Marcus replied. Kayla smiled faintly. "You're not letting this go, are you?" "Not a chance." Athena barked once, as if in agreement. They climbed into the truck again, Kayla in front, Creed and Athena in the back. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. The municipal center faded into darkness behind them. But ahead, new lights were beginning to flicker on. The kind that exposed more than just numbers on paper. The kind that revealed who pulled the strings. "This was never about just us," Marcus said quietly. "It's about every uniform they tried to erase." Creed stared out the window. "Then we follow the money and burn the whole thing down on paper." The next morning, sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Cedar Ridge's administration building. The front desk was empty. Dana Parker's nameplate had been removed. Her office was locked. But a single bouquet, Kayla's, drooped in a vase, the only reminder of the day before. Marcus, Creed, and Kayla stood outside the office door as Lieutenant Reynolds approached. "District Council arrives in 10 minutes, he said. "If you're going to find anything, do it now." Reynolds handed Marcus a key. Inside, Parker's office was stripped down, papers cleared, laptop powered off, only faint impressions left where items once sat. But Marcus moved with purpose. He checked the bottom drawer and found it locked. Kayla noticed a strip of tape under the keyboard. Marcus peeled it back. A key. He unlocked the drawer. Inside sat a slim manila envelope labeled Kayla Norton, Scholarship Files. Marcus pulled it out gently and placed it on the desk. Underneath was a single USB drive labeled A 37 Confidential. Kayla's breath caught. That's it. That's what they were hiding. Creed cleared space on the desk, powered up the computer, and inserted the drive. A password prompt appeared. Marcus typed quickly. UP, change 2024. A code Parker had written in the corner of her notebook 2 days ago. The screen flickered. Folders appeared. Commission memos, staff withdrawals, threat protocols. Marcus opened commission memos. Inside, a document titled Operation Smooth Grad, Objectives, signed by Evelyn Walsh and initialed by Reginald Harper. He opened it. Directive A37. Identify high-profile individuals whose presence may draw media attention. Execute quiet removal under security pretense. Kayla whispered. They planned it. Creed opened staff withdrawals. Parker's name was there. Next to it, professional risk acknowledged, non-disclosure confirmed. Below, destruction protocol initiated. Tape and memo disposal scheduled post-gala. She knew everything, Creed said. Then, a knock at the door. Reynolds peeked in. District Council just arrived. Marcus turned to Creed. Secure the drive. Make copies. Hide them well. He looked to Kayla. You ready to finish this? She nodded. Let's bring it all into the light. The District Council conference room smelled like new carpet and strong coffee. Heavy drapes blocked most of the light, casting a tense gloom over the long table. Dana Parker sat at one end, shoulders slumped, eyes red. Two attorneys flanked her. Across from her sat Marcus, Kayla, Creed, and Lieutenant Reynolds. The lead councilwoman, Ms. Priest, adjusted her glasses and tapped her pen against a legal pad. We've reviewed preliminary files and recordings, she began. Today we address responsibility and motive. She turned to Parker. Miss Parker, did you implement Directive A37? Parker nodded, her voice trembling. I followed orders. I thought I was protecting the ceremony. Ms. Priest slid a stack of printed emails forward. This thread contains direct instructions from Superintendent Walsh. Confirm? Parker hesitated, then whispered, Yes. But I never wanted anyone hurt. Walsh sat further down the table, stiff and pale. You issued crowd control orders knowing they targeted veterans, Ms. Priest said evenly. I was told they might provoke media backlash, Walsh replied. We were advised to minimize exposure. Marcus leaned forward. Advised by whom? Silence. Then Ms. Priest spoke again. We now have documents showing that threats were used to block student scholarships. She turned to Walsh. Were you aware Kayla Norton's scholarship was flagged by DataCare LLC under pretext? Walsh shook her head slowly. That wasn't my call. I never approved that. But you didn't stop it, Kayla added, voice firm. Ms. Priest nodded. Intentional or not, lives were impacted. Creed leaned into the mic. We have USB records, documents, financial logs. Directive A37 didn't start at Cedar Ridge. It was pushed from higher up. Priest's assistant passed her a note. She read it and looked up. We'll recommend a full external audit to the governor's office, starting with Cedar Ridge. This hearing is now part of a broader investigation. Marcus exhaled. Walsh lowered her eyes. Parker looked down at the table, relieved maybe, or broken. Kayla glanced at her father. Is it over? Not yet, Marcus said, voice quiet but resolute. But they're listening now. The council hearing ended, but the weight of it lingered in the air like smoke. One by one, the attorneys filed out. The reporters who had watched through a glass partition scribbled furiously in notebooks. Dana Parker remained in her seat, staring blankly at the grain of the table. Her voice had broken twice. She hadn't asked for forgiveness, but she hadn't defended herself either. Marcus rose, looking at his daughter. You okay? Kayla nodded. It's a start. Athena padded over from the corner of the room and rested her head against Kayla's knee. The young girl stroked her fur gently, her eyes thoughtful. Lieutenant Reynolds approached. That was strong testimony. The governor's office will see the audit request, but it won't be immediate. Creed crossed his arms. Then we push. We go public if we have to. Ms. Priest, who had just collected the hearing files, turned and paused in the doorway. There's one more angle we need to explore, she said. Commissioner Carver. Marcus frowned. She signed Directive A37? Priest nodded. And she has connections to private security firms. We have no proof yet, but we're tracing contracts that were funneled to preferred vendors. Reynolds added, if she benefited financially, that's corruption. Marcus's expression darkened. Then we trace the money. Priest turned back. And we get ahead of the press. If the story leaks from us, they can't spin it. Creed nodded. We've got the files, Parker's laptop, the encrypted server access. It's all in motion. Kayla looked up. What if the board tries to bury it? Marcus met her eyes. Then we dig louder. He turned to Creed. Secure the copies. Every drive. Every document. Athena barked once. Sharp, purposeful. The team stood in quiet unity. No headlines yet. No arrests. But the illusion of control the board had maintained was cracking. Marcus looked at the USB in his palm, still warm from the computer's port. This is just the beginning, he said. That night, inside a converted warehouse protected by steel doors and reinforced locks, the team gathered around an old metal desk. The space was Creed's safe house, bare bones, but secure. Dana Parker stood off to the side, her arms crossed tightly. She hadn't spoken much since the hearing, but something about her posture said she wasn't done helping. On the desk sat her laptop, now connected to a portable drive system. The USB containing Directive A37 blinked steadily as data transferred. Athena sat alert beside the desk, ears forward, eyes fixed on the screen like she understood everything. Creed typed quickly, bypassing encryption. This vault's deeper than I thought, he muttered. Parker wasn't lying. A directory opened, hundreds of files. One folder stood out, Carter Initiative. Marcus narrowed his eyes. That name's been floating around. You didn't open it before? Parker shook her head. I was afraid. I thought if I exposed that, I'd lose everything. You already gave up everything, Marcus said. Might as well finish what you started. Creed opened the folder. Inside, spreadsheets, emails, recorded calls. One email bore the header, from Mariah Carter, State Secretary of Education. The subject line, a 37 enforcement protocols, confidential. Creed played a recording, a woman's voice. Graduation optics matter. Veterans in uniform draw media sympathy. Our rollout must remain smooth. No special cases. If they won't comply, remove them quietly. Everyone in the room went silent. That's the voice, Parker whispered. That's who gave the real order. Another file blinked to life. A list of security firm bids, most tied to Carter's political donors. Contracts signed and approved within days of a 37's distribution. Kayla stared at the screen. They used our graduation as a test run. Marcus clenched his fist. And if we hadn't pushed back, no one would have noticed. Creed nodded slowly. We just found the head of the snake. Athena gave a deep growl, quiet but steady. Marcus stood, eyes locked on the screen. Now we cut it off. Creed was backing up the final files when a sudden metallic clatter echoed outside the warehouse. Everyone froze. Athena sprang up, ears stiff, stance rigid. Marcus motioned for silence, his military instincts kicking in. He moved toward the door, Creed at his back. Parker grabbed the laptop and stepped away from the desk. Kayla instinctively moved behind Athena, who now growled, low and deliberate. Footsteps. Outside, someone moved fast, then paused. Creed flicked the lights off. The warehouse went dim, lit only by the computer's screen glow. Back door, Marcus whispered. Then, a knock. One. Then two quick taps. A pause. Then three more. The exact signal Creed had taught his team. Marcus opened the door a sliver. Lieutenant Reynolds stood in the alley, breathing hard. We have a problem. Inside, he wiped sweat from his brow. The governor's liaison just called. There's doubt now. Carver's denying the directive was ever authorized. Creed scoffed. We have the memo. We have her signature. She's calling it a draft, claims someone leaked it without her approval. Reynolds pulled out a flash drive. But this changes things. It's footage from a commission meeting 2 months ago. He plugged it into the laptop. On screen, Commissioner Carver appeared, standing at a podium, speaking confidently. Directive A37 will ensure the smooth professional nature of graduation ceremonies. Our duty is to protect the institution's integrity, no distractions. She admitted it, Kayla whispered. On camera. Marcus nodded slowly. They'll still try to bury this. Parker stepped forward. Then don't give them time. Marcus looked at Reynolds. What's the governor's move? He's on the fence, Reynolds said. Wants something irrefutable, something undeniable. Creed tapped the laptop. We've got the full digital chain, files, voices, faces. Marcus clenched his jaw. Then we bring it all, every byte, every second, directly to the Capitol. Reynolds nodded. And if the politicians stall? Then we go public, Marcus said, voice steady. No more backrooms, no more shadows. Athena let out one soft bark. This wasn't about exposure anymore. This was a reckoning. By mid-morning, the Capitol was buzzing. Reporters swarmed the marble steps. News vans lined the streets. Inside, security checkpoints were overwhelmed by a tide of press badges and courthouse staff. Marcus, Creed, Kayla, and Athena stepped through the front entrance, escorted by Lieutenant Reynolds and 2 Capitol officers. Dana Parker trailed quietly behind, clutching a folder that felt heavier than any briefcase. This is it, Creed muttered. No more whispers. The hearing chamber was larger than the school auditorium, but colder. A row of 5 state commissioners sat behind a polished dais. At the center sat Lydia Carver, her face unreadable, gavel in hand. Mr. Norton, she said coolly, you've requested this emergency session. Please summarize your evidence. Marcus stepped forward, flanked by Kayla and Creed. Athena sat beside him, unmoving. He placed the drive on the table. This contains recordings, financial records, internal emails, and audio instructions tied to Directive A37. It includes memos signed by you, Commissioner Carver. Gasps. Carver narrowed her eyes but said nothing. Marcus continued, voice clear. This policy was used to target veterans, to remove them from school events, and to threaten scholarships, all under the guise of security. Carver held up a paper. This document was never ratified. Creed stepped forward. Then explain why it was distributed to every district under your login. Silence. Then, a flicker of movement. Athena stood, walked to the edge of the chamber, and gently nudged a page that had slipped under the table. A commissioner picked it up. It was a printed memo. The heading, Addendum, Enforcement Clause. Carver's signature was at the bottom. Her composure faltered. That was internal. Ms. Priest, seated behind the legal team, stood. Commissioner Carver, this document, combined with witness testimony and digital records, confirms full authorization. The chamber stirred. Kayla turned to Marcus, her voice a whisper. Did we do it? Marcus didn't answer yet. He looked straight at Carver. We're not here for politics, he said. We're here for the truth, and for every voice you tried to silence. Marcus sat frozen, his grip on Athena's harness tightening. The crowd around him had fallen into a restless silence. Every head turned toward the scene, unfolding in the third row. Look, the tall guard leaned in. We've got instructions. Marcus stared at him. From who? The guards hesitated. Finally, the shorter one muttered, Assistant Principal Parker. Marcus's jaw clenched. Dana Parker, the same woman who'd smiled warmly at him in the parking lot and thanked him for his service. She'd offered to escort Athena to the designated service dog area. Now she was the reason he was being told to move? He scanned the gym, found her across the aisle. Parker sat poised, her expression unreadable. "This has to be a mistake," he said under his breath. "She told me I was family." The guards didn't flinch. "All we know is, the order came in this morning," one said. Athena remained still but alert, her gaze sweeping the crowd. Marcus could feel her muscles coiled beneath his hand. This wasn't combat, but it felt like it. Then, as if summoned by the shift in tension, Parker stood. The buzz in the room died. She walked slowly toward them, each heel click echoing in the cavernous gym. When she reached the row, she turned to the guards and said, voice like silk, "Gentlemen, let's not make a scene." The words struck Marcus like a backhand. A scene? He hadn't done anything. Parker turned to him. "Mr. Norton, I'm sorry for the confusion. Unfortunately, we've run out of family tickets. If you could please move to the bleachers." "I was assigned this seat weeks ago," Marcus replied, "for my daughter." A few people nearby murmured in agreement. A mother whispered something. Someone raised a phone. Parker's eyes hardened. "I have the authority to reassign seating." "Is this because I'm in uniform?" Marcus asked quietly. For a fraction of a second, her eyes flicked away. That was all he needed. The room went dead silent. Commissioner Carver stared at the document in the aide's hands, her signature in black ink, the addendum plain as day. There was no more denying it. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Marcus stood still, his voice calm but cutting. "You didn't just write a policy. You wrote people out of their own families' stories, out of their children's milestones." Ms. Priest stepped forward. "I request immediate admission of this document into the official record." Another commissioner nodded. "Seconded." Carver slammed her gavel down, but her hand shook. We'll recess for 15 minutes to verify the document." Athena barked sharply. The sound echoed through the chamber like a verdict. The commissioners filed out. As soon as the doors shut, the tension broke. Cameras flashed. Journalists rushed forward. Creed leaned into Marcus. "She's cornered. She'll fight back," Marcus muttered. "They always do." Priest approached. "We've got her. The directive, the addendum, video, audio, testimony. Every layer is on the record now." Kayla smiled, pride shining behind her eyes. "They can't erase this." But Marcus wasn't smiling. "They'll try to spin it, claim it was a draft, say the media misunderstood." Reynolds nodded. "You're right, but you've lit the fuse." Athena nuzzled Marcus's leg. He placed a hand gently on her head. "We came here to speak the truth. Now we make sure it echoes." The door opened again. An aide leaned in. "They're calling the session back early." Everyone stood. Carver returned to her seat, face pale, jaw tight. She held a single page in her hand. "This addendum," she said slowly, "is being withdrawn, pending full investigation. Directive A37 is hereby suspended, effective immediately." Relief swept the room. Soft gasps, applause. But Marcus remained focused. A suspension wasn't an admission. Not yet. As cameras rolled, he leaned forward, eyes locked on Carver. "We're not done," he said quietly, "because now the people are watching." The official hearing ended with applause, but Marcus knew better than to celebrate too soon. Suspending Directive A37 was a win, but only a temporary one. Outside the chamber, sunlight spilled across the marble steps. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Cameras clicked. Microphones stretched in every direction. Marcus, Creed, and Kayla stood just inside the heavy double doors, watching the frenzy build. Lieutenant Reynolds joined them, flipping through notes. Press is already running with the story. National outlets want interviews. You're the face of this now. I didn't want to be the face, Marcus muttered. I just wanted to sit and watch my daughter graduate. Kayla touched his arm. But you didn't let them erase us. Creed nodded. That's leadership. Like it or not, people are watching. Behind them, Parker appeared, quiet, tired, but standing straighter than she had in days. They'll come after me, she said. Marcus didn't blink. Then we'll protect you. You did the right thing. Reynolds turned to Creed. What about the rest of the files? Already backed up, hidden, multiple drives, multiple locations. If they try to cover this up, we drop everything. Marcus looked to Priest, who had just emerged from the conference room. She held a folder in her hand. We're recommending a full-scale audit of the Commission on Education Reform. Every contract, every directive, every hidden memo. Marcus's jaw tightened. What about Carter? Secretary of Education Carter is next, Priest replied. But she has more insulation, more friends in high places. We'll need more than one recording. Kayla stepped forward. Then we keep digging. Parker looked to Marcus. Are you sure you want to take this higher? He nodded. The higher it goes, the more they have to lose. Athena barked once, short and decisive. Outside, the press kept calling Marcus's name. He stepped into the light. Not for glory, not for revenge, but because he had evidence. He had a voice, and this time, the world was ready to listen. Late that afternoon, the team gathered inside a quiet government annex building, miles from the Capitol. No press, no cameras, just wood-paneled walls and tired staff members clutching coffee. The governor's liaison, Esteban Cruz, sat at the head of the table. Gray streaked his hair. His eyes were sharp, but shadowed by exhaustion. He set down the Carter directive memo with a sigh. Commissioner Carver's denying everything. She says it was a draft, leaked without approval. Marcus stayed silent, watching him. Cruz held up the USB. But this, combined with the audio, the memos, the addendum signed in ink, this puts pressure on the governor. And if what you're saying about Secretary Carter is true. Marcus nodded. Then we're not just dealing with a bad policy. We're looking at systemic corruption, tied to school budgets, security contracts, and political donors. Creed added, we found vendor records, all pointing back to companies linked to Carter's campaign contributors. Cruz leaned back. And if we follow that trail? We prove that Carter orchestrated a 37 not for safety, but for control, to sanitize public events, control optics, erase stories like mine. Kayla spoke quietly. Erase families like ours. Cruz rubbed his temple. The governor will need a reason to act, a formal one. Ms. Priest, seated beside them, opened a folder. We're submitting a formal petition for a special legislative session. Cruz nodded. It's risky. Carver still has allies. So does Carter. If they stall. Marcus cut in. Then we go public. I'll testify. Kayla will speak. Parker will. And if they try to silence us again. Creed finished for him. We burn everything. Every file, every tape, every recording, online, in the press, on the Capitol steps. Cruz studied them for a long moment. Then he stood. I'll escalate this to the Chief of Staff, but be ready. This will get ugly. Marcus rose too. Good. We're not here for comfort. We're here for the truth. Athena barked softly, as if sealing the promise. The Capitol's hallways hummed with tension as Marcus and his team stepped out of the annex. A security escort flanked them, just in case. Rumors were already spreading. Carver's suspension, the recording, the Carter Initiative. Outside, the air was thick with voices. Reporters lined the steps again. Someone shouted, "Sergeant Norton, is it true the Secretary of Education authorized the directive?" Another yelled, "Are you planning to sue?" Marcus didn't answer. Not yet. Beside him, Kayla clutched her phone. Notifications poured in. Messages from classmates, teachers, total strangers. "Thank you. You're brave. You spoke for all of us." She looked up at her dad. "They want to hear more." He nodded. "Then we tell them." Inside a nearby press briefing room, Creed set up a simple mic stand while Athena paced behind him. Ms. Priest handed Marcus a short statement, but he set it down. He didn't need notes. Cameras rolled. He stepped to the microphone. "My name is Marcus Norton. I'm a Marine. I'm a father. And I was told I didn't belong at my daughter's graduation because of my uniform." Clicks, shutters, silence. But this isn't just my story. Directive A37 was more than bad policy. It was a blueprint for erasure, for removing anyone who didn't fit the narrative. He paused. "They told us it was about security. It was about silence. But my daughter deserves to be heard. Your children do, your families do." Kayla stepped forward. "I almost lost my scholarship because someone thought my dad was too visible. But he's the reason I made it here, and he's not invisible." Marcus looked to Athena. "Neither is she." Athena barked once, ears perked. The cameras caught every second. Creed whispered, "It's out now." Ms. Priest's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up. "The governor's watching. Carter's office just canceled a scheduled appearance." Marcus exhaled slowly. The truth had entered the spotlight. And now, it couldn't be ignored. The next morning, the headlines hit like thunder. Veteran Father Sparks' scandal over graduation policy. Directive A37, who signed it and why. Education Secretary under fire after leaked recordings. Marcus's phone rang non-stop. Calls from advocacy groups, civil rights lawyers, and even old service buddies who'd seen the clip on national news. Kayla sat at the kitchen table with Athena curled at her feet, scrolling through the flood of support messages. "Someone started a petition," she said. 50,000 signatures overnight. Creed entered holding a tablet. "We've got a problem. Carter's office is launching a counter-narrative." He set the tablet down. A slick press release blinked on screen. The secretary was unaware of misinterpretations in the policy's local execution. "We support all veterans and their families." Marcus read it twice. "They're walking it back without admitting fault." Priest, joining via video call, frowned. "That's not surprising, but we have leverage." She uploaded a new folder to their drive. Financial statements, wire transfers, lobbyist meetings. We traced campaign donations from security firms that directly profited from a 37 Creed, grinned. "Now we're talking." Priest continued. "It's not just bad optics, it's fraud. Procurement violations, conflict of interest, enough to get state investigators involved." Reynolds joined the call. "Governor's office wants full files today. They're preparing a statement." Marcus nodded. "We'll give them everything. And if they delay, we leak it ourselves," Creed said without hesitation. Kayla looked up. "What if she resigns?" Marcus shook his head. "Then someone else will take her place and try the same thing. We're not just here to end a directive. We're here to end the pattern." Athena stood and walked to the door, tail stiff. Creed looked up. "That your sixth sense, girl?" Athena barked once, then sat, watching the front entrance. Outside, a black car pulled up, a government plate. Marcus stood. "Let's see who's scared and who's ready to talk." The black car idled for a few moments before the door opened. Out stepped a tall man in a gray suit, sharp, deliberate in every movement. His eyes scanned the house, settling on Marcus, who stood in the doorway with Athena at his side. The man raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "Mr. Norton, my name is James Ellison. I'm Chief of Staff for the Governor." Marcus didn't move. "You're early." Ellison smiled faintly. "You've left us little choice." Inside, Creed pulled up the files. Kayla moved to the hallway, listening. Ellison entered, glancing briefly at Athena. "May I?" Marcus nodded once. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Ellison placed a small encrypted drive on the table. "This is the governor's proposal. An internal review board. Independent investigators. Full audit powers." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And what do you want in return?" "No more leaks. No public testimony. You let the process work." Kayla spoke up. "They said that before, when Mom filed her report." Ellison turned to her, caught off guard. She continued. "They said to trust the system, but the system tried to erase us." Creed chimed in. "You want silence? Too late. The story's out. The people are awake." Ellison leaned back, eyes calculating. "You're forcing our hand." Marcus leaned forward. "Good, because we're done waiting for permission." There was a long pause. Then Ellison nodded slowly. "The governor will make his statement within 48 hours. Carter will be placed under administrative review. The commission is being restructured." Creed crossed his arms. "And if any of that stalls?" Ellison looked to Marcus. "You'll do what you've always done. Lead loud enough that no one can ignore it." He stood, adjusted his tie. "Whether you realize it or not, Mr. Norton, you've already changed the narrative." Athena followed him to the door, watching until the car disappeared down the road. Kayla turned to her father. "Was that a win?" Marcus smiled faintly. "It was movement. And sometimes that's how change begins." 2 days passed, and then it happened. The governor stood at a podium, the state seal behind him, dozens of microphones in front. Cameras zoomed in, reporters leaned forward. "In light of recent revelations regarding Directive A37, he began, "I am announcing a full suspension of all associated enforcement protocols. An independent audit will commence immediately." He paused, face somber. "We owe our veterans more. We owe our students better. And we owe our people transparency." At home, Kayla watched from the living room couch, her hand over her mouth. Beside her, Marcus stood silently, arms crossed. He didn't blink. Then came the moment they weren't expecting. The governor held up a single sheet of paper. "This is a resignation letter," he said, "signed by Secretary of Education Mariah Carter, effective immediately." The room on screen erupted in questions, flashes, noise. But at home, silence. Kayla turned to her dad. "She's gone?" He nodded once. She blinked. Creed entered with a grin. "Guess that counter-narrative didn't hold." Athena barked, twice, tail wagging now. Parker called moments later. "It's official. State Board is reopening every case linked to A37. Expungements, scholarship reviews, reinstatements." Kayla gasped. "Wait, what about me?" Parker paused. "Kayla, you're getting your scholarship back." Tears welled up in Kayla's eyes. "I thought it was gone. I thought—" "You earned it," Marcus said. "No one gives you your story. You claim it." Ms. Priest emailed next, a scanned copy of the new audit order and an invitation. "Testify," Creed read aloud, "before the Education Subcommittee." Marcus nodded. "Let's finish it." The next day, Marcus stood at the Capitol again, not in uniform, but wearing a plain suit and holding a copy of his speech. He looked to Kayla beside him, calm, proud, steady. Athena sat quietly at his feet, a symbol now, of memory, of loyalty, of truth. As he approached the microphone, Marcus took a breath. Not to fight, but to tell the story that no one would dare erase again. The room was smaller than the main chamber. No grand dais, no sea of reporters. Just a semicircle of state officials, legal advisors, and citizen advocates. Marcus adjusted the microphone, his speech in one hand, Kayla's presence grounding him from the other side of the room. He looked around. Then he folded the speech and placed it aside. "I'm not here to read a script," he began. "I'm here because, for too long, stories like mine, like my daughter's, have been edited out of the final draft." Some of the legislators exchanged glances. "I served my country," Marcus continued, "and when I came home, I expected the same country to let me celebrate my daughter's achievements without being treated like a threat." He nodded toward Kayla. "She's brave. She stood tall when people in power told her to sit down, when they told her to be quiet, when they told her that family came with conditions." One committee member asked, "Mr. Norton, what do you want this committee to understand?" Marcus didn't hesitate. That the next policy, the next directive, the next quietly passed rule, they'll come again. And if we don't build protections now, someone else will be erased. He gestured toward the gallery. That's why transparency isn't optional. Why oversight isn't red tape. It's the only tape that matters. Another official asked, "And if you could write one sentence into the law?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I'd write this. No one's presence should ever be treated like a disruption if it's rooted in love, honor, or truth." Kayla's eyes glistened. The committee chair cleared her throat. "Thank you, Mr. Norton. Your words will be entered into the record." As Marcus sat down, Creed whispered, "You just wrote the first line of the next chapter." Outside, the sky had turned golden. Athena waited near the door, as if she knew something important had shifted. Marcus stepped into the light once more, and this time, he wasn't alone. He carried the weight of every silent voice, now heard, now echoed, now free. Weeks passed. The media storm quieted, and the capital returned to routine. But for Marcus and Kayla, everything had changed. They were no longer background characters in someone else's story. One quiet Saturday morning, Marcus stood at the kitchen table with a stack of unopened mail. Bills, flyers, official envelopes. He reached for the last one, plain white, no return address. He opened it slowly. Inside was a small note card, handwritten. "You don't know me, but I saw what you did. I was removed from my son's graduation last year. I thought I was alone. Thank you for speaking when I couldn't." No name, just a date, and a postmark from halfway across the country. Marcus stared at the card. Kayla entered, a smoothie in hand. "What's that?" He handed it to her. She read it, then looked up. "There's probably hundreds more like this." "Thousands," Marcus said. That night, he set up a small wooden box outside their home. A sign above it read, "Tell your story." The first letter came from a retired teacher in Arkansas, then a Navy mom from Florida, then a high schooler from Oregon who'd been silenced during a veterans assembly. Each day, Kayla sorted the letters with care. They started cataloging them. Creed built a database. Priest connected them to advocacy networks. What began as a ripple had become a movement. At school, Kayla gave a speech in front of her entire senior class. "I used to think my story didn't matter," she said, "but now I know it does, and so does yours." The auditorium erupted in applause. Back home, Marcus sat by the window, reading another letter by lamplight. Athena lay beside him, calm, as if she understood. He whispered to no one in particular. We didn't fix everything. Then he smiled. But we started something. Outside, the letterbox stood in the quiet evening. A beacon. And by morning, it would be full again. Summer arrived gently. For the first time in a long time, the Norton household felt like a place of peace, not defense. The walls no longer echoed with tension. The shadows didn't feel like watchers anymore. Kayla packed for college, her scholarship reinstated, her future once again her own. Marcus stood in her doorway, watching her fold clothes into a suitcase. You'll be great, he said softly. She smiled. You already are. In the living room, Athena chewed on a worn tennis ball while Creed scrolled through emails. One caught his attention. He frowned. Marcus, you might want to see this. Marcus leaned over. It was from a newly elected official in a nearby district, thanking him for his testimony, asking if he'd consider joining a task force on educational equity. They're forming policy with your words now, Creed said. They want you in the room. Marcus stared at the screen. Do you think I belong there? He asked. Kayla appeared behind him. Dad, if you're not in that room, who will speak for the ones they ignore? Marcus clicked reply. Yes, he typed. Let's talk. That night, he sat in the backyard under a fading sunset. Fireflies blinked lazily. Athena curled beside him. He looked up at the stars, thought about the families who never got their moment back, thought about the ones who would, because someone, somewhere, had finally said, no more. Parker stopped by later with a box of thank you notes from students, some anonymous, some signed with big looping handwriting. We're archiving them, she said. The museum's interested. Marcus raised an eyebrow. A museum? State history, she said. Movements begin with people, not policies. You proved that. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because sometimes the loudest change begins with the quietest choice. And the people who make it aren't always politicians. They're parents, students, dogs who never leave your side, and men who show up again and again until truth has a place to stand. The silence in the gym had turned electric. You could feel it ripple across the bleachers, down to the floor. Marcus's question still hung in the air. Is this because I'm in uniform? Dana Parker didn't answer. Not really. Her practiced smile returned, but her eyes couldn't hide the flicker of unease. She turned to the guards again. Escort Mr. Norton to the back, please. Athena's ears twitched. Her body tensed like a loaded spring. One bark, short, sharp, cut through the room. Gasps. More phones were lifted, cameras pointed, whispers spread like fire. And then something unexpected happened. 6 men stood up, scattered through the gym. They weren't in uniform, but Marcus recognized every one of them. Brothers, Navy SEALs, Creed Marston, Javier Meeks, Zachary Wells, and 3 others from deployments past. Men who had fought alongside Marcus in deserts and jungles. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They just stood tall, arms at their sides, eyes locked on the unfolding confrontation. Their presence changed everything. The guards hesitated. One of them shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware this was no ordinary parent dispute. Parker saw them too. Her expression froze. The weight of the room turned on her. We've got orders, the tall guard insisted, but his voice had lost its bite. Then let's handle it right here, Marcus said, in front of everyone. The shorter guard reached for his radio, but hesitated when he saw Creed staring directly at him. You don't want to make this a spectacle, Parker warned. Marcus straightened. You already did. Somewhere in the crowd, an elderly woman whispered, Thank you for standing up. The words were soft, but carried like a prayer. Parker's confidence faltered. But then she did something no one expected. She reached for a small recorder clipped to her belt, clicked it on, and tucked it back into her blazer. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Why was she recording this? He looked to Athena. She was already watching Parker. It happened one afternoon, weeks later. A letter arrived in a navy blue envelope, trimmed with gold. Kayla opened it, her hands shaking just slightly. Inside was a single sentence. We are honored to invite you and your family to participate in a special graduation ceremony, this time with no one left behind. Marcus read it once, then again. He looked at Kayla. You want to go? He asked. She nodded. Only if you walk me up this time. On the day of the ceremony, they arrived early. No security flags, no arbitrary rules, just rows of folding chairs and a stage under open sky. Athena wore a bow on her collar. As families took their seats, a few people recognized them. Some offered handshakes, others simply nodded with quiet respect. The speaker stepped up to the podium. We're here today to correct a moment that was taken, she said, to honor every student's right to celebrate, with the people who made their journey possible. Kayla's name was called. She stood, walked slowly to the edge of the stage, then turned back, extended her hand. Marcus joined her, in full dress blues. The crowd stood and applauded, not because he was a symbol, but because he was a father. Kayla accepted her diploma. Marcus stood beside her, eyes steady, back straight. No guards, no ejections, no directives, only presence, only love. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, a boy no older than 10 ran up to them. My mom says you changed everything, he said, looking at Marcus. When I graduate, I want my dad to wear his uniform too. Marcus knelt beside him. Then make him proud, and don't let anyone tell you who belongs. The boy grinned, then ran off. Kayla stood quietly, watching the horizon. We did it, she whispered. Marcus nodded. Not every wound gets a scar. Some get a ceremony. And this time, they were allowed to finish the story. Late one evening, after the ceremony and the applause and the endless thank you notes, the house was quiet again. Marcus stood in the hallway, staring at the old photo on the wall. Him in uniform, holding baby Kayla, both of them smiling wide. Time felt like a loop sometimes. Behind him, the front door creaked. Athena stood there, alert, ears forward. Marcus frowned. What is it, girl? She didn't bark. She just stared at the door. Marcus walked over and opened it slowly. There was no one outside, just the breeze. But something had changed. On the welcome mat sat a small package, wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address. He brought it inside carefully and opened it. Inside was a simple journal, handmade. On the first page, a message. For the stories still waiting to be told, keep collecting them. Beneath the message, one paw print. Athena wagged her tail. Marcus turned the next page, blank. And the next, and the next. 100 empty pages. He looked up at Kayla, who had just entered with a bowl of popcorn. You okay? She asked. He handed her the journal. She flipped through it, smiling slowly. We should fill it. With what? With the letters, the speeches, even the ones that didn't make the news. She looked up, with every voice that almost disappeared. Marcus nodded. A legacy. They placed the journal on the kitchen table, next to the wooden letterbox. A new tradition, now stitched into their home. Later that night, as the stars filled the sky and the air turned cooler, Marcus sat by the window, with Athena curled up nearby. He opened the journal to the first blank page and began to write. My name is Marcus Norton. I was asked to leave my daughter's graduation because I wore my uniform. This is what happened next. The pen moved slowly, but steadily. And outside, the letterbox waited. A place for the world to whisper, "I'm still here." A year later, the world had moved on. New scandals, new headlines, new directives. But in a quiet corner of a public library, tucked between civil rights archives and local history displays, sat a small glass case. Inside, a folded uniform, a black and white photo of Kayla and Marcus, and a leather-bound journal, opened to the first page. A small brass plaque read, "The Norton Testimony, when one voice became many." Visitors came and went. Some lingered, some cried. A few left folded notes beside the case, as if the man in the photo might read them later. Meanwhile, Marcus spent his days speaking at schools and community halls, not as a hero, he'd always insist, but as a reminder. At one event, a teen asked him, "Do you think one person can still make a difference?" Marcus looked at her for a long time before replying, "Not always, but one person can give others permission to speak." He looked out at the crowd. And that's where change begins. Back home, Kayla prepared to leave again, this time for a summer internship with an education policy group. She packed the journal last, wrapped in cloth. "I'm going to keep collecting stories," she said. Marcus smiled. "Just make sure they know they matter." Athena followed her to the car, tail swishing low. "Don't worry, I'll call every day," Kayla said, kneeling to pet her. As she drove off, Marcus watched from the porch, arms crossed, eyes proud. The house felt quieter now, but not empty. Inside, the old wooden box remained, still receiving letters, still offering a place for the forgotten. Marcus sat beside it that night, reading a new one from a mother in Utah. She wrote, "I never knew how to tell my son why I couldn't come to his event. Your story gave me the words." He placed the letter gently in the archive box, then whispered, "For the ones who stayed behind, because they mattered too. And now, they would never be left out again." By midsummer, something unexpected began to happen. Across the country, small communities started hosting their own honor walks, ceremonies to recognize families who had been silenced, displaced, or disregarded by old policies. No politics, no agendas, just stories, names, applause. One day, Kayla called Marcus. "Dad, you've been invited to speak at the National Summit on Education Equity." He chuckled. "They must have run out of professors." "They want someone who's lived it," she said. "Someone real." The event was held in a packed university auditorium. People of every age, color, and background filled the rows. When Marcus stepped onto the stage, the room quieted, not with obligation, but with respect. He didn't read a speech. He didn't need to. "I didn't come here to impress anyone," he began. "I came here to remind us why we started this fight." He glanced toward Kayla in the front row. My daughter missed her moment, so I stood up. He paused. But then I realized it wasn't just about her. It was about every moment stolen from families because someone decided their presence was inconvenient. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. "Policies didn't build this stage," he continued. "People did, the quiet ones, the steady ones, the ones who refused to sit down." He gestured to the crowd. "You are the stage, and if you stay standing, no one can erase you." After the talk, people lined up, not for autographs, but for stories. One man said, "They told me I couldn't speak Spanish at my school ceremony. I never walked." A woman added, "They separated my father at the door. He left in tears." Marcus didn't have solutions for everyone, but he listened, and sometimes that was enough. That night, Kayla handed him a new journal, Volume 2. He opened to the first page. She'd already written the title, The Stage We Built, and beneath it, a note, Your voice gave me mine. Autumn came early that year. The leaves turned gold before the school year even began, and the air carried the scent of change. Marcus stood in the attic one afternoon, sorting through old boxes. He found dusty medals, folded uniforms, photos from deployments, snapshots of a life that felt both distant and painfully close. At the bottom of one box was a sealed envelope. He opened it. Inside was a letter he had written, but never sent, addressed to Kayla, dated the week after her graduation. He sat on the floor and began to read. Kayla, I'm sorry. Sorry that I couldn't stop what happened. Sorry that your moment was taken. But I need you to know this wasn't your fault. You are the reason I kept fighting. Not because you needed protection, but because you deserved celebration. If you ever doubt your voice, remember, they tried to silence it because they feared its power. So speak. Even when your voice shakes, I'll be listening. Always. Dad. He folded the letter and placed it on her desk, now mostly empty. Downstairs, Athena barked once, then again. Marcus came down to find Kayla standing at the door. Surprise visit, duffel bag in hand. Miss me? She grinned. He laughed, hugged her tightly. I found something upstairs, he said. She followed him to the room, read the letter silently, then sat beside him. Did you mean all that? She asked. Every word. They didn't speak for a while. Outside, wind rustled the trees. Time moved gently. Finally, Kayla stood, looked around her old room. You think all this will be remembered? She asked. Marcus smiled. If we write it down, if we speak it out loud, if we live like it matters, then yes. She picked up the journal. Then let's keep going. Because stories don't end when justice begins. They grow. And what we leave behind becomes the path for someone else. Winter arrived in silence. Snow blanketed the neighborhood, turning every rooftop and sidewalk into something soft, something quiet. Inside the Norton home, the heater hummed. Athena dozed by the fire. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, the latest volume of the journal open in front of him. He was no longer writing just their story. He was collecting others, hundreds now. Some typed, some handwritten in pencil, some drawn in crayon by children, too young to know how to spell justice, but who understood what it felt like when something wasn't fair. Kayla walked in holding a letter. This one came from Alaska, she said, a girl whose dad was deployed when she graduated. The school wouldn't let her walk with a photo of him. Marcus took the letter gently, read it, and added it to the growing archive box. They were planning something new now, an online platform, a digital stage for every voice that had been hushed. Creed was coding it. Priest had agreed to oversee moderation. Even Parker was consulting on partnerships with veteran groups and student alliances. It wasn't just a cause anymore. It was a chorus. One night, Kayla asked, "Do you think this will ever be done?" Marcus looked up from the journal. "No," he said, "but maybe that's the point. Some stories aren't meant to end. Just pass on." They sat in silence for a while, until Kayla opened a fresh page in the back of the journal. She handed Marcus a pen. He paused, then wrote, "To whoever reads this next, you are not alone. You never were." The ink dried slowly. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering old footprints, making room for new ones. Because every fight leaves echoes, and every echo becomes a beginning. Somewhere, another story was already starting, and this time, someone would be there to hear it. Athena let out another low growl, soft but unmistakable. It vibrated beneath Marcus's feet like a buried alarm clock ticking closer to detonation. Parker's recorder blinked red, discreet, but visible. She gave the guards a nod. "Now," she said, her voice calm but forceful. One guard stepped forward, reaching for Marcus's shoulder. Athena stood, instantly, not lunging, not barking, just standing, silent, steady, eyes locked on the man's hand. A statue of warning wrapped in fur and muscle. The guard froze. Behind them, a student gasped. A father muttered, "She's trained." The weight of the moment crushed any remaining chatter. No one moved. Not the guards. Not Marcus. Parker spoke again, this time more urgently. "Escort him. Now." The tall guard lifted his radio. "Back up en route," he whispered. From the far corner of the gym, someone stirred. The assistant principal from the stage stepped down, phone in hand. Her lips moved silently. "I'm sorry." Still, no one acted. Marcus turned to Parker. "Tell them to stand down." "I can't," she replied, but there was a tremor in her jaw now. "I've already sent the order." Outside, sirens rose, faint but growing louder. Blue and red light began to flicker through the high windows. Athena's posture shifted again. Her hackles rose. The message couldn't have been clearer. Any closer, and there will be consequences. Marcus rested a hand on her harness. "Stay," he whispered. "Trust me." She didn't budge, but she didn't advance either. From across the gym, students leaned forward, watching this slow-burning standoff unfold in real time. It was no longer just about a graduation seat. This had turned into something larger, something deeper. Kayla, sitting near the front of the stage, stood slightly in her row, scanning the crowd. Her eyes locked onto Marcus. She looked confused, concerned, and proud. Marcus met her gaze and gave a small nod. He wasn't backing down. Not for this. Not today. The gymnasium vibrated with tension. The sirens outside grew louder, a signal of something greater approaching. Inside, time stretched. Nobody dared to move. The guards stood stiff, radios in hand, eyes flicking between Parker, Marcus, and the unmoving dog between them. Athena sat again, poised but pulsing with energy. One bark and the fragile balance would shatter. And then, movement. 6 warriors, still silent, began repositioning. Not aggressively, just enough to be seen, to make their presence known. Creed stepped down to the edge of Marcus's row. Another flanked the far aisle. A living wall had formed. Parker saw it and hesitated. A bead of sweat trailed down her neck. She turned toward Marcus, offering a final warning. "Please don't escalate this." Marcus replied, calm but clear. "I'm not escalating anything. I'm refusing to be erased." That's when the gym doors burst open. A lieutenant entered in full uniform, flanked by officers with rifles holstered at their hips. One look at the guards, the SEALs, and the dog, and the situation clicked instantly. "Status?" he asked, voice sharp but neutral. One guard pointed. "He's the Marine." The lieutenant's eyes locked on Marcus. Recognition sparked. "Sergeant Norton?" Marcus nodded. "Sir." The man straightened. "Hold positions. No action without direct orders." Behind him, Assistant Principal Parker returned through the doors, trailed by aides. She froze at the sight of the police presence. For the first time, her mask slipped. Just a fraction, but enough. She was losing control. The lieutenant turned to her. "You requested police backup. Why?" Parker opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her purse fell from her shoulder, spilling a stack of papers, seating charts, name lists, and a recorder. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward. "I've had enough of silence and half-truths," he said. "I came here with a valid ticket. I came to see my daughter graduate." His voice rose just slightly, enough to reach the bleachers. "What I want now, What we all deserve is the truth. The tension in the gym was at a breaking point. Students leaned forward in their seats. Parents sat frozen, unsure whether to watch the stage or the aisle. Kayla hadn't moved, still standing, still searching for her father's eyes in the crowd. The lieutenant knelt to pick up the fallen documents from Parker's purse, seating charts, a program, and a blinking recorder, still on. "What's this?" he asked, holding it up. Before Parker could answer, Marcus stepped forward. "Play it," he said. The lieutenant looked to Parker. She didn't object. Her silence was its own permission. He pressed play, static. Then Parker's voice, calm and sharp. "He's not just a parent. He's a Marine in uniform. If he stays, the media will latch onto it. We need him gone before this becomes the story." Another voice, a man's, lower and colder, replied, "No special treatment. Uniform or not, we don't need headlines. Handle it." The room went silent. The crowd gasped. One mother covered her mouth. A teenage boy whispered, "That's the board president's voice." Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to. The weight of the truth had spoken louder than any protest. Creed stepped up beside him. "You heard it. That wasn't about protocol. That was suppression." The lieutenant turned to Parker. "Is this real?" She looked down at the gym floor. "Yes," she whispered. The lieutenant turned back to the crowd. "Sergeant Marcus Norton has done nothing wrong. He stays." A wave of relief swept the bleachers. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then rising like a tide. Kayla stepped out of line at the stage, her eyes shimmering with tears. Athena gave a soft bark, sensing the shift, and wagged her tail. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders easing. But even as cheers rose around him, his mind raced. The voice on that recording wasn't just Parker's. It belonged to someone higher, someone pulling strings. And if today was only the beginning, what else were they hiding? The applause had barely faded when Marcus knelt beside Athena, brushing his hand along her fur. "Good girl," he whispered. Her ears perked, as if she already knew her role in what had just unfolded. Beside them, Creed crouched and whispered, "That recorder. You need to hear the rest." Marcus nodded. As the crowd began to settle, Creed pulled the compact device from his jacket pocket. "Parker dropped this earlier," he said. "Athena found it under the bleachers." He handed it to Marcus. The small recorder still blinked red, still capturing. Marcus opened the back, removed the micro SD card, and slid it into his phone. The recording resumed immediately, Parker's clipped voice filling the space between them. "He's a decorated Marine," she said on tape. "If he stays, he becomes the image. The cameras will turn on him. We need him out quietly." Then, a new voice emerged, smooth, calculated. Male. "Good. We can't afford a distraction. The board wants this graduation clean. No uniforms, no stories." Parker again. "Understood. I'll handle it." And finally the man's voice again. "No exceptions. Service dog or not, he's not the story. The board is." The recording ended. Marcus stared at the screen, heart hammering in his chest. That second voice, Creed said softly, was Reginald Harper, board president. The weight of it hit Marcus like a wave. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate effort, an operation even, to erase his presence. Creed folded his arms. They were more worried about optics than honor. Athena nudged Marcus's hand gently. He looked to the front of the gym. The ceremony was resuming. Kayla stood in line, just a few names from the podium. Marcus inhaled deeply. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But right now, for this moment, he would stand tall. For her. As the announcer called out, "Kayla Norton." Marcus rose from his seat. Athena barked softly, and the crowd, now fully aware of what had nearly been stolen, rose to their feet. Kayla walked across the stage, cap tilted, tassel swaying, a bright smile fixed on her face, but her eyes searched only one direction. Marcus stood in the front row, applauding, not politely, not modestly, proudly. Athena sat beside him, tail thumping the gym floor. Kayla accepted her diploma from the principal with one hand and waved toward the crowd with the other. But as she turned toward her seat, she caught sight of Marcus and paused. Their eyes met. For a second, nothing else existed. The crowd clapped, students whistled, teachers smiled, but Marcus could only see Kayla. She mouthed a simple word, "Thanks." He nodded. The lump in his throat wouldn't let him speak. The moment passed. Kayla returned to her seat. The announcer called the next graduate's name, and the ceremony moved on. But something had changed. The tension in the gym was gone, but the questions were just beginning. Creed leaned over. "You're clear. Ceremony's back under control," he whispered, but the fallout's only just started. Marcus nodded. From the side of the bleachers, the lieutenant approached quietly. He handed Parker's discarded program to one of the guards and leaned in. "The chief's on the line. He wants a full debrief. We'll need to log that recording." "I'm keeping a copy," Marcus replied calmly. "It's evidence now." The lieutenant didn't argue. Creed lowered his voice again. "That recorder, there may be more on it." Marcus stared ahead. "I want everything." Every second behind him, Athena shifted. Her nose lifted slightly, catching a scent on the air. She rose without a sound and padded down the aisle between rows of chairs. Seconds later, she returned, with the small black recorder gently clutched in her mouth. She dropped it at Marcus's feet, then sat again, tail sweeping once across the floor. Creed raised an eyebrow. "Your dog's better than half the detectives I've met." Marcus crouched to pick up the device. "This story," he said quietly, "is far from over." Marcus turned the recorder over in his hands, the weight of it suddenly heavier than plastic and wires. Inside, it was truth, and the voice behind it all. He opened the casing again, removed the SD card, and passed it to Creed, who slid it into his phone. "Let's hear it." The gym ceremony continued in the background, but for Marcus and his team, time slowed. The audio clicked on. A familiar male voice filled the speaker, calm, rehearsed, but unmistakably authoritative. "He's a decorated Marine. If cameras catch that uniform in the front row, the story shifts. Remove him before he becomes the headline." Marcus tensed. That wasn't just school policy talk. That was public relations strategy. Another voice entered, Parker's. "But he has a service dog, and his daughter's valedictorian." The man answered, firm. "No exceptions." "This board doesn't want distractions. No military image, no sympathy play. The dog goes too." Then a pause. A third voice, deeper, less familiar, cut in with cold finality. "This is approved at the district level. Handle it quietly. We don't need this turning political." The recording ended. Silence. Creed looked up. That wasn't just the board president. Marcus nodded slowly. That last voice was Harper, but the one before him. Creed finished the sentence. "District Superintendent Evelyn Walsh." Marcus sat down hard on the bleacher bench, the sound echoing louder than the applause on stage. This wasn't a local vendetta anymore. This was institutional. Athena nuzzled his hand gently. Creed muttered, "They wanted you gone because of what you represent." Marcus clenched his jaw. Because a Marine in uniform, with a dog at his side and a daughter graduating with honors, was too much for their image to handle. He turned to Creed. We have proof now, not just suspicion. Orders, voices, names. Creed nodded. Then we take it to the district office. Marcus looked toward Kayla, who had returned to her seat hugging her diploma. No, he said. We take it all the way up.